Hi everyone, a very warm welcome back to MEC-TEC. We're back on the workbench today and we're concentrating on the old gearbox again. Now, in the last Project Plonker video, you would have seen me doing the modifications to the bell housing on the other side here that you can't see at the moment to get the clutch arm to work with the Regal setup. Today was hopefully going to be a nice simple video on resealing both ends of the gearbox and making it leak free. Now, that quickly escalated into what you're about to see, which is basically a full strip down and rebuild of the gearbox. Now, I've never taken a gearbox apart before in my life, didn't know what the hell I was doing, so it was worrying to say the least. I didn't know if it was going to go back together again or not, but as you can see, it is all in one piece, so I must have done something right, and it changes gear, so that's always a good sign. So let's not waffle on any longer. I'm going to send you back to past me and I'll show you exactly what happened and why we had to do what we had to do. Let's crack on. Right, I've got the plate off the inside of this end of the gearbox now. As you can see, there's a gasket around here which we're going to be replacing. There's also a small seal which goes onto the input shaft, which we're going to be replacing as well. So that is that. I'm just looking at this bearing. It does seem a little bit noisy, so I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do about that yet, because I don't actually know how it comes out. There is a washer that goes on here along with a spring washer as well, spring clip, circlip, what we want to call it, but it doesn't actually release anything, so I don't know whether to get this out you've got to get it out from the other end or what. I'm just going to do a bit of investigation. I've got to take the other end off as well, because obviously we need to change the seal and the bearing behind this one as well. So I'm going to do a little bit of investigation into this and then I'll come back to you. Right, things have escalated somewhat since I last was recording. As you can see, I've pretty much got the whole gearbox apart now, which is not ideal because I've never had a gearbox apart in my life. I was taking off one of the covers thinking that it needed a gasket changing behind it, and it was actually the main cover which holds the back end of the gearbox in. And everything fell apart inside and it wouldn't move, so I've had to take the whole lot apart, and yeah, that's the stage I'm at the moment. So I'm in a world of pain. I don't really know what I'm doing, which is nothing unusual, and yeah, so all because I thought that bearing sounded a bit rough, but there we go. This one's fine. That one's no problem at all. The one on the output shaft's absolutely fine. The one on the input shaft is not great. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. So it looks like I might be learning how to rebuild a gearbox by the looks of it. Oh dear. Right, I was literally on the edge of jumping off of a cliff when I first did this. I did not know what was going on and where I was going with it and what I was going to have to do. I thought, well, I'm going to have to get a new gearbox again and all the rest of it. Well, I've just sort of sat here and collected my thoughts for a minute, and I'm thinking to myself, well, at the end of the day, it's nuts and bolts and cogs. Why can't I put it back together? So out comes the Haynes again, and I've been looking at obviously what I've got to do. Now, I have given it a bit more of a cleaning here now. There was quite a few metal shavings in there off of this reverse gear cog. You can obviously see now how that moves and all that sort of thing on there. That's the reverse shaft selector. Now that does need a little bit of a file down. It's got a bit of a groove worn in it, so while we've got it apart, I'm going to do that. And also, the reason I took it apart originally was this bearing, which is the one inside the bell housing there. I wasn't very happy with the way it sounded, and it kept sort of jamming up. It doesn't sound that great, so I am pleased in a weird kind of way that I've done what I've done, because obviously I'm going to change that bearing now as well, which means it will be good for many years to come, and I won't ever have to worry about it, because it didn't sound great. And every now and then when you spin the shaft, the bearing stopped moving, so there was obviously a load of gunk in it of some sort. So the next job I'm going to do now is try and get this, I think this input shaft comes out with the bearing on it, if that makes sense. So I'm going to try and knock that through from the inside. I'm going to be very careful doing it because obviously I don't want to take any teeth off the cogs when I go. It's quite a tight fit in there. And yeah, I'm going to slowly but surely just sort of take that out, and then we can get that replaced, and then I've got to work out how it goes back together, which is going to be the hard bit. But anyway, we will persevere and not give up. So let's carry on. Right, as you can see, I've been busy doing a lot of cleaning and I've now got a effectively Reliant Gearbox exploder view showing obviously all the parts that are in the casing. Now I've took basically everything out apart from the reverse select fork, because obviously I needed to clean it all anyway, and while it's apart I may as well have got it all out and inspected it all and made sure everything was alright, which it appears to be fine. So at least I can say I've taken the gearbox apart now. I know it's not a particularly complicated gearbox, but still. So now I've got to try and I'm going to get a new bearing for it, for this one, which was the original reason why I was thinking about taking it apart, because that sounded a bit noisy. And possibly a new bearing for in this housing as well while we're here, because otherwise there's no point in doing one without the other. Yeah, and so I've got all of those. Obviously I've got everything cleaned and ready to go back in. The inside of the box is now completely clean and immaculate as well, as you can see in there. Hopefully you can see the reverse selector fork there as well. I've cleaned up all the gasket off the inside of there as well, so that's all ready to go when I get the new gaskets. They're en route supposedly. Cleaned up all this housing, got all the gasket off of that. That's one of the new seals that we're going to be replacing as well. And I cleaned up all the back of this and got all this clean, got all the old gasket off of that too. So it's looking marvellous and clean. Whether it'll ever work again remains to be seen at the moment, but I'm going to give it my best shot to try and put it all back together again, and hopefully we'll end up with a gearbox again with new bearings and seals and everything else. So when I get the new bits, I'll come back to you. Right, we've got new bearings, we've got new seals, new gaskets, new selector shafts, springs and ball bearings. We've got the lot. This all came from James at CHG Classics, and big shout out to you for sending these out to me. So basically we've got everything we need now to, in theory, put this lot back together. Now I've kind of been putting this off a little bit because I'm a bit scared, but there we go. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is get the new bearing put in here. That's the old one. There wasn't much wrong with the old one, but we've got a new one while we're in here. There's no point in not changing it for the amount they are. So I'm going to get that put in there. I'm going to get the new seal put back in there, which that's the old one. Then that can sort of just sit there for the minute until we need that then. And then we're going to start looking at hopefully trying to get this little lot back in the gearbox again. So it's should be interesting to say the least. I'll come back to you when I've made a bit of progress getting that bearing back in. Right, that went in very easy indeed. I barely had to tap that in with a plastic hammer. That's all home. You can see I've got the snap ring or circlip back in there, whichever you want to call it. That is all back in there together. So all we need to do now is tap the new seal in this side, which shouldn't take too much. I'm going to give that a little clean out in there first with a wire brush on a wheel, just so that this slides in nice and easy. And then we should be good to leave this section of it alone, at least for the minute. So that is superb. Let's carry on. There we go. That is the new seal in there, nice. It's got a little flap that it sits against, so you can't hit it in too far, which is good. Makes things a little bit easier. I use the old one to hammer it in there with. So that is the new bearing and new seal now in that casing. That bit can now be put to one side for the minute at least. We'll get rid of that old seal out of the way because I don't want to confuse that with anything new. Same with that old bearing, we'll get rid of that out of the way as well. Now, there's a few things that have sort of semi-fallen apart here that I've got to put back together, hopefully. These have got little sort of springs with little sort of ends on them that go in there. I don't know what the technical term is for those. And then you've got these little plates which how do they go on there? I think they just sort of, I'm trying to remember how it went now. I think you have to slide that over because this holds Yeah, you slide that over, then you've got these, they've got a curve on one side of them, which you can see there. They slide in to these little sections here with it against these little spring-loaded bits, and then once those are in, you've got these 3 little ball bearings that go in there, which go in the centres. Like that, and then this bit then clicks over the top, and that holds it all in together. That's the theory anyway. I'll try and, whoops, this is the issue. You don't want to lose any parts. Where's that ball bearing just flown off to? I heard it land on the towel, so it's definitely down here somewhere. Where's it gone? Come on. Yeah, boy. There it is. We've got to try and get it. Oh, that was another one. I had 2 of them fall out, so I've got one which is gone walkies at the moment. Where the crocodile hat has that gone? Well, at the moment I can't find it, so that's a bit of an issue. Got 2 of them. One of them keep falling out everywhere. I want to put them back on this towel for a minute. Right, one there, one there. Ah, I can see it. Here it is. It wouldn't have gone far. Just try and find it about moving stuff, otherwise if you move stuff it falls somewhere else and then you can't get it at all. I can't pick it up, my fingers won't pick it up. Right, we've got our 3 ball bearings again. One in each one of these. Hopefully without losing them this time. This is a nightmare. There's probably a really easy way of doing this, but having not done this before, I don't know what it is. Right, 3 ball bearings in there, 3 little plates in there. Now this should squidge over the top, hopefully. That's the plan anyway. There we go. I've got to try and get it so that these don't push up with it like they just have. They go underneath like that. Come on, why are we not going in? There we go. Right, so we've got those 3 little plates in there, the 3 ball bearings in there, and Mrs. MEC-TEC needs me. Hang on a second. Right, sorry about that. Mrs. MEC-TEC's battery for a car just arrived. So we've got that in there with the 3 plates and 3 ball bearings. Now this, I believe, is the synchro ring, and that just slots in the end there like that. As far as I know, that's how that goes. And then I think when we put it in the box, that end goes inside there like that, and then it holds it all together, and that makes the complete shaft. So I might leave that on there for the minute, because that seems like it sits on there better than on there. I'm going to get the gearbox casing on here now. Hopefully we can start putting things back in the gearbox itself. I'll come back to you in a sec. Right, bear with me on this, because obviously this is like unraveling the fabric of time to me. So the first thing to go in is the reverse gear selector, cog, and the rod that it runs on. So just putting a little bit of the old engine lube on here, just so that it's got something to run on before we get. I know we're going to get oil in it pretty much straight away, but just to be on the safe side. Now this gear's got to go in there. I'm sorry if you can't see mega amounts, but it's quite difficult to get a camera angle and me to be able to see at the same time. So that goes in there like that. In fact, that's not, can't do that because I've got to get the selector fork engaged as well. So let's get that in the gauge. There we go, that's better. There we go. Right, so that's, see that shaft is in there now, and we can select backwards and forwards on that with reverse. So that is that bit back in. Right, next bit I can think is we've got to get the lay shaft in, which goes in the bottom of here, and it has one of these thrust bearings, or thrust washers I should say, either end. Now I'm just going to look at the pictures here to see how these go, because they are keyed. They've got a little step in them, you can see that there, which fits into a little groove in the gearbox to stop them spinning. Now these are going to be a bit tricky, because obviously they are liable to fall out. So I'm going to use a little bit of this stuff. Luckily enough, this lubrication, because it's supposed to stay there until you start an engine, it is a little bit sticky, so hopefully I'm going to stick this into place and it'll be staying there where it needs to go. Something like that. If not, no, it's not. If not, I might use a little bit of grease just to stick it to it. Might be alright. I've got one of these at each end. Let me just check they're both the same. Yeah, they are. That's okay. Right, they're both the same. I don't think it makes any difference with that little cutout where that goes on the side there, because it can only go in one place because of the little bit that steps back, you know. To say I'm nervous about this would be the understatement of the year. Because, as I said before, I don't know if this is ever going to work again. And it wasn't my initial plan to take it all out, if I'm honest. It was only going to be a reseal, but because I took off the wrong thing, getting a bit gung-ho, it then meant that the inside went and fell apart, which meant I had to take it apart. Right, this is the lay shaft, which I believe goes in this way. I'll try and thread all this in, and then there's a rod that goes through. Now actually, before I put that in, oh no, I can put some lubrication on the rod itself, so that's alright. We'll go down in the bottom there, in between the two washers without knocking them off, hopefully. I'm going to get a little bit of lube on this. hopefully this will all be going in and stay where it should be. There's no guarantee of that, obviously. In fact, I can pretty much guarantee that it won't, but you never know. Things might go my way. No, there goes the washer. Told you. Right, okay. I may have to change how we're going to do this slightly. Which washer's come off? The back one. This is fiddly as anything. Right, let's get this so that that's started on there at least, so that that washer can't fall off. Like that. So that's that washer. I know that's going to be alright then, in theory, as long as I don't knock it off. The back one, on the other hand, is going to be a bit of an issue. This is not easy when you've got big hands. This is probably the smallest gearbox in history. Well, no, it's not the smallest gearbox in history, but you know what I mean. It's pretty small, is what I'm saying. Right. Now I think what I need to do is get something through the other end temporarily to stop that falling off. Ah, we're in. Right. Now, the question is, has that rear washer moved? I'm guessing the answer to that is probably yes. Oh, it might be alright. Oh, there it goes. It's through. The grease did its job. Kept it in place. Unbelievable. Right, so now, look, if we spin that now, we can gauge in reverse. So that's good. Right, I'm not 100% sure that that bottom washer is still in there where it should be, if I'm honest. Worrying me that that hasn't gone through there. But I think it has, that's the thing. Do I take it out and have another look, just to be on the safe side? Sorry, I've got to take it out and have another look. Right, we're in. Woohoo! Right, after a bit of struggling, as you can see, they have now got the input shaft in there and the lay shaft in there. They're both spinning together freely and marvellously and all the rest of it. I've got a reverse gear there as well, so that is super duper. All engaging nicely. So next thing now is to get the main shaft in, I'm guessing. The Haynes manual did actually say to put the lay shaft in first and then the primary shaft in after, but you can't get the primary shaft through the hole unless you put it in before the lay shaft, so which is why I have to take that back out again to obviously get that through. So that is a little bit misleading in the Haynes manual, unfortunately. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to have a little read of the manual and see what's next. I think I'm pretty sure it's the main shaft that goes in next, but we'll just make sure and go from there. Right, it is a different day. Let us reset a little bit and I'll just explain to you what's going on. I've got the primary shaft in, which you can see hopefully spinning just there. That's in. The lay shaft is supposed to be put in, but not with the spindle through the middle of it. So it's just laying in the bottom of the case, which is why you have to why I had to take it back out again to get that primary shaft in, because it's not supposed to be put in with the shaft yet. So it's only resting in the bottom of the case, as you see it there, with the washer at each end. So hopefully that will stay there and won't fall out. In the meantime, I've now got the main shaft. Let me zoom you out. Now got the main shaft on the housing with the new bearing. However, I'm having a bit of an issue with these ball bearings and plates that keep springing out. So we've got two synchro hubs, one here which I think is 3rd and 4th, and one here underneath this thing here which is 2nd and 1st. Now I had two ball bearings, I didn't know where they went. Sorry, I wasn't showing that in the camera, was I? This is 3rd and 4th, this is 2nd and 1st, I believe. I had two ball bearings that were, I didn't know where they went. It turns out they went underneath here with these plates, but rather than having only, something just fell down inside there, I'm gonna have to rescue that. Rather than having 3 of them with 3 plates, there's only 2, and the witness marks show there has only ever been 2 in there. So I've put that back as it was. So I'm hoping that's right. This end, unfortunately, has just sprung apart again, which is the issue I'm having at the moment. So I'm going to get these 3 plates back in here with the ball bearings. This collar then slides over the top of them like that, and then we should be able to put this main shaft into here, hopefully. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. So it's a bit of a steep learning curve. This, it probably isn't that complicated to anyone who's done a gearbox before, but because I haven't done a gearbox before, this is something like from outer space. So I'm going to get this back together, and hopefully when I come back to you in a minute, I'll have this inside the gearbox and it should all be working, fingers crossed. Let's carry on. Right, after countless times of me bedoinging these, that's a technical term by the way, bedoinging these ball bearings across the garage into numerous places that I'd spent ages trying to find them again. If I had hair, it would have all been pulled out by now. I think we're at the stage now where we can put this main shaft back in. Just pray to God that I've done it right, because as I say, first time and everything, I have no idea. So the next thing we've got to do is get the new gasket on the back of this housing. Now it doesn't say to use sealer, but I'm going to, just because of the way it was before. I don't want it leaking everywhere. I'm going to get that put on, and then we've got to somehow then try and fiddle with this bottom lay shaft to get the rod through the middle of it once this main housing is in place. That's going to be difficult because obviously there ain't a lot of room, and I think what I'm going to try and do is, it says in the Haynes to get a screwdriver in the end here to hold the bushes in place, little shims, so they don't fall out. I think we're going to be alright, but it's just going to be a right fiddle. So I'm going to go for this and hopefully it's right, because if it's not, then, well, I'll probably cry. I'll come back to you in a minute. Right, that might have been quick for you, but that took an age to get that back in. But there we go. We've got a full rotating assembly back in there now. Whether it's right or not, I still don't know. But the lay shaft, I don't know if you can see that down the bottom now, is rotating as well. That is on its rod now in the middle. That was a bit of a faff to get through. I actually used this rod here, which is obviously a lot thinner, to get the washers aligned in the end. Or this end was okay, obviously, because this is the end I could see easily, but this end where it's capped off now by the end cap, was I could only see it from the other end, so I managed to get it all in line and get the washers lined up, and then the rod dropped through the middle, which was lucky, which is that one down the bottom in there, this one. So next job now, according to the Haynes manual at least, this is what I'm going on, is I've already done the speedo drive, already done the seal. Looks like we can get the end thing on, the end plate for the drive shaft, but looking at it, it looks like we're doing the gear selectors next, so that's going to be the next job by the looks of it, getting those in. There are ball bearings that have got to drop in at certain points as well, which obviously you don't want to miss doing that in a certain step, because otherwise it won't work. So I'm going to work out what I'm doing next, and I'll come back to you in a second. Right, next job is going to be the selector shafts, as I thought. Now before we put the two selector shafts in, we've got to put in these two ball bearings, which are the interlocking ball bearings. There's also a pin which goes in one of the shift shafts as well. Now inside here there is a little cutout on this side of that middle hole, and a cutout in between this hole and this hole where those ball bearings go. So what I'm going to do is cover them in grease, because then I can put them in there and they won't roll back out again. That's the theory anyway. This is going to be a proper fiddle, I would imagine. What I'm going to do is get them in there like that, and I'm going to get a small screwdriver, plonk them in where they need to be, and hopefully they'll stay put, and then all I've got to do is slide the two selector shafts in, and then they can't go anywhere then. Little tiny flat bladed screwdriver should do the trick, so we just got to basically push them in and push them sideways. Says the grease is sticking to the screwdriver. Alright, that's one of them in. Looks like the other one. That wasn't as bad as I thought actually. Right, so they're in there now with a little bit of grease, so they hopefully won't fall out. Now, the middle selector shaft has got a hole through the middle of it, which has got a pin that goes in there, which is this little one here. So that's obviously got to go in there. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on that actually, just so that it don't fall out when I slide it in. It shouldn't do, but just to be on the safe side. Smear a bit of grease both sides of it, it won't hurt it. And then take that off of there. That can slide in, and that then will go back on there, that end. Before I go any further, I'll just put this other selector shaft in, and then I need to get the forks, the selector forks, put on the shaft before I can push them all the way through to obviously the other side of the case, because they slide on. So I'm going to get that done, and I'll come back to you in a second. Rightio, after a lot of faffing about, and I mean a lot, you can see I've got all the shifter forks, shifter shafts, and the sockets for the gear stick to go into back in there. Now I'm not going to move anything, because I'm not going to lie, I tried to shift gears with it without any of these covers on, without that cover on in there as well, and all the little ball bearings went ba-doing, and I had to take it all apart again. Not everything, but I had to take all the shifters back out again, and it was a right pain. So next job is going to be to get this gasket and this cover sealed onto in here. I did temporarily fit it, and it does all fit okay. I'm going to give that a clean up with some panel wipe, get some sealer on both sides of this gasket and get it on. And there is also a new seal, rubber seal, already put on the shaft in there. You can see that there, so that is on, ready to go. The old one was where is the old one? somewhere up here. It was very, very baggy, and obviously that's why it wasn't sealing, because it was knackered basically. So that's on. We've got the 3 retaining springs with new ball bearings in there. You can just about see that in the hole. So they're in there. 3 new springs with for the selector shafts. They are on. So yeah, we are pretty much there. I've got the prop shaft plate on as well on the end there, on the tail end. So that's all on, with obviously the new seal behind it and everything else. So I think if we can get these 2 covers on, like, sorry, this cover with the gasket and then the final gear stick cover and the gear stick itself, barring some oil, we are there. I did not think this was going to come back together like this, honestly. I thought it was going to be in a million pieces forever and it would be me going out and buying another gearbox. But there we go. So let's get these on and then see if it shifts all right. Right then, as you would have seen at the end of that bit of time lapse there, gearboxes. I hate gearboxes. Anyway, the roll pin had fallen out of the middle shift selector when I put it back, and I didn't realise. So I've now taken all the shift selectors back out again, put that roll pin back in with a bit of grease, and now to show you on camera, we have got all gears. So that's neutral, first, second, third, fourth, and if I can do reverse, because you have to lift it up. There we go, reverse. Now bear in mind there's no oil in this at the moment. That's not too bad. Considering this numpty took it apart and it's gone back together again, I'm quite chuffed with that. So, looks like the gearbox and the engine can now go together, and then we can get it in the van. That's the theory anyway. So that is going to be probably in the next episode. We're going to hopefully get these 2 mated together and get it in the van, maybe even get it running. I don't know yet, but we've got plenty of other things to be getting on with as well. So it's a bit of a juggling act at the moment, but there we go. So if you do like what you see, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button down there and ring the little notification bell. It will tell you every time I upload a video. I have got Instagram, MEC_TEC1985, and I have got Facebook, MEC-TEC, for little sneak peeks during the week of what I'm up to. And all it is left for me to say is thank you very much for watching, and if you want to join me soon for more automotive adventures, I'll see you again next time. Cheers guys.